Okay, this is a reading from the Gospel of John, from the First Nations translation. Hear what God's Spirit is saying to you. Long ago, in the time before all days, before the creation of all things, the one who is known as the Word was there face to face with the Great Spirit. This Word fully represents Creator and shows us who He is and what He is like. He has always been there from the beginning, for the Word and Creator are one and the same. Through the Word, all things came into being, and not one thing exists that He did not create. Creator's life shined out from the Word, giving light to all human beings. This is the true light that comes to all peoples of all the world and shines on everyone. The light shines into the darkness, and the darkness cannot overcome it or put it out. Here ends the reading of words that give us insight on God. May God grant us wisdom and courage for interpretation.
Well, there's a great American holiday coming up this week. Maybe you've heard of it. It's called Black Friday. It's the day when Americans celebrate consumerism, but you may not be aware that there's actually a holiday before Black Friday. It's called Thanksgiving. This lesser-known holiday is a holiday where you are supposed to be thankful. And so, in that spirit, I thought I would start off this morning by trying to be a little thankful. I thought I would write some thank you notes this morning in the style of Jimmy Fallon from The Tonight Show. Thank you very much for giving me a few moments to get caught up on my thank you notes. Got so much to be thankful for. Got to get these in order. Thank you, Black Friday, for teaching us the true meaning of Thanksgiving, that we can avoid family by all means necessary. I know some of you may be avoiding your family by shopping, but beware, they know about the internet now, so you can't say that you're just going to wait in line. Thank you, Thanksgiving, for making sure that we've scheduled time for awkward conversations. That's right. Politics, religion, and your dating life are all grounds for discussion with your grandma or whoever. Don't you love awkward conversations? Y'all can practice having some at the tables you're sitting at now if you want. What's up with that minister? It's awkward. Thank you, Pumpkin Spice Latte, for being a full Thanksgiving meal you can drink. Doesn't it seem like everything is pumpkin spice latte flavored these days, though? How many of you like pumpkin spice latte? How many of you do not? Oh, it's about equal. Okay, so I decided that I wanted to Google what could be pumpkin spice flavored. In fact, did you know that your communion wafers were pumpkin spice flavored today? I'm just kidding, they weren't. Here are some of the other things I found that were pumpkin spice flavored this season. Tea and beer, that's pretty typical, right? Also, Cheerios, Werther's Original Candy, so that all the grandparents can get their pumpkin spice flavor too. Greenie's Dog Treats, because your dog can't live without that pumpkin spice flavor. Oreos, Pringles, protein powder, and burritos. That's actually what's on the menu today. Vince has fixed us a bunch of pumpkin spice burritos. Thank you for that, Vince. Thank you, Thanksgiving football games, for getting lazy family members out of the cleanup work. You know, I've tried to develop an interest in football so that I can get out of cleanup, but it just hasn't taken yet. I'm going to try again this year and see how it goes. Thank you, Kids Table, for teaching us exactly how far cranberry sauce can be flicked from a spoon. There are a bunch of kids' tables here, aren't there? We're going to see cranberry sauce flying. They always tell me I should sit at the kids' table, but I've managed to avoid it. I have an 18-month-old, and she flicks everything. That's her way of telling us she's done eating. As soon as she's done, she throws it across the room. That's it. That's my thank you notes for today. Thank you for giving me a moment to do that. You know, I love Thanksgiving. Maybe it's because Shauna and I had our first date on Thanksgiving. Aww, isn't that sweet? She asked me out to her family's Thanksgiving as our first date. Way to put the pressure on. Isn't that like moving the relationship down the road like a year? Luckily, it went well, and here we are, still together. Thanksgiving. It's something that I appreciate. Last week, we talked some about the difficulties with Thanksgiving, about some of the problems with our national narrative of Thanksgiving celebrations, and I think that that's important to recognize, that kind of the national myth that we have around Thanksgiving is inadequate and wrong. In fact, maybe some of you have seen that meme that has the indigenous folks and the pilgrims sharing a turkey, and it says, "Thanksgiving, that day when Americans helped to feed illegal aliens," the white settlers from Europe, right? So I think once we acknowledge that, then Thanksgiving is a really wonderful celebration. It's something that's important because we often don't really stop and look around and consider what we're grateful for, do we? Or at least I don't feel like I do that enough. Stop around, look and say, wow, look at what I've got in my life and how lucky I am to be alive this day. Amen. To look at the food I have and say, how lucky am I to have eaten today? To look at what I'm wearing and say, how lucky am I to have clothes to wear today? Isn't that powerful? You know, Tina read just a few moments ago for John 1, the very first verses of the chapter of the Gospel of John. And I loved this translation that she read from, the First Nations translation. I love it because I know John really well. Not personally, but I know those first few verses of the Gospel really well. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. You know that? Very familiar. And this version put a new light on this text for me. This First Nations translation isn't really a translation, it's a version that was created by Indigenous North Americans for North American Indigenous peoples. And the purpose is not to translate word for word, but to tell the story from that perspective. And I think that whenever we're talking about people who have been traditionally marginalized, retelling the story, there can be a lot of power in that. And it certainly was powerful for me. Listen to these opening lines again. Long ago, in the time before all days, before the creation of all things, the one who is known as the Word was there face to face with the Great Spirit. The Word fully represents the Creator and shows us who He is and what He is like. Then later, Creator's life is shined out from the Word, giving light to all human beings. I love that because that gave new life to the John Dominic Crossan quote for me. If you want to know what God looks like in sandals, you point to Jesus. For me, Jesus is the lamp through which God's light shines. Jesus is the lamp through which I can see God's light. And that is why I continue to turn to Jesus after all these years to see that light. And it occurred to me that we, as the body of Christ, are supposed to be lamps through which God's light shines as well. We are supposed to live our lives in a way through which God's light can shine. That our lives are supposed to be radiant beams of God's light. You all are radiant beams of God's light. For me, I see God's light through you. One of the most ancient Christian hymns is one that says, "Many are the light beams." Have you ever heard that? Many are the light beams of the one light. Our one light is Jesus, is the way it goes. And you all are light beams. You all are a part of God's light and love in the world. And I give deep thanks for this community that is in the world, trying to make it a little brighter when it so often feels dark. The shooting targeting LGBT folks last night. We continue to see acts of hate and violence in our world. And coming here on Sundays gives me hope because you all are the light beams. You all are sharing God's light. It gives me hope because it makes me realize that if we can change just one thing, just one heart, just one life, then we are doing something incredible. You are an incredible community of faith, and I am grateful for you. You know, in the midst of COVID, we were all separated, and I got this text from a friend who I hadn't seen in almost a year at that point. And she said, "Hey, Caleb, I want to come by the church and I want to give you a gift." And I said, "I don't know, it's COVID." She said, No. We'll meet outside. We'll be physically separated. We'll both wear masks. And I said, "I'm an extrovert. I need people. Go ahead, come." And so she came and she gave me a basket. And in it was a jar. And I said, "Well, what's this?" She said, "It's a gratitude jar." She said, "I've been having a hard time during COVID, and one of the practices that I've started is whenever something good happens to me, I write it down and I put it in the jar. And then whenever I'm feeling bad, I go back through and I look at it." And I thought, you know what? That's not usually my thing, but I think I could use to be a little more grateful, especially during this time. And so we started to do that. And we did it until our jar was about full. And then I sealed it, and I hadn't looked at it in 2 years until yesterday. I opened up the jar, and I started to read the things that my family and I had written that we were thankful for. And almost every one, except for one where Kit drew a picture of Iron Man, almost every single one of these was about relationship. It was about people who had been kind and generous and loving, through which we had seen God in our lives. So friends, this week, I encourage you to think about those things for which you are grateful. You can put them in a gratitude jar if you want. And to think about those people in particular who enlighten your life. May this be a week that is filled with gratitude, thanks, and where God's light is shining in your life so that you may shine God's light out in the world. May it be so, and happy Thanksgiving.